Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Casual Word and Casual Word Radio, where we continue our endeavor to change the world one word at a time. I'm your host, Langley, and I'm very excited today to bring to you guys a new series that we're getting ready to launch with my guest here today. You guys have heard me talk about the Win the Morning Call. That's on Clubhouse, created and facilitated by Francesco Francisi. Well, you guys know I call him Chesco. Let's Go Chesco is kind of his brand and what he's doing and some things that he's working toward in terms of life coaching and really empowering other people to be the best possible version of themselves. Along with this call, he's created a community of people. This is a paid community, $21 a month, but it gives you access to him, myself, other people who are really trying to empower, coach, lead, and really give people the best opportunity to grow and move forward in their lives. And within this community, we are able to share our values, our dreams, we're sharing our wins, we're doing a lot of things, but we're also open and transparent about the things that we're struggling with. And so this community, as you all have heard me talk about on many occasions, is somewhere where you can be uplifted, somewhere where you can be encouraged, and somewhere where that you can feel safe enough to talk about the things that are troubling you and some of the things that you are trying to overcome. And with that, the gentleman that I have with me today, Conrad Krause, is someone who I've just recently met. He's been on the Clubhouse call for about 6 months now, I think. And, beautiful testimony from what we have just briefly talked about offline. And I wanted to bring him in to kind of kick this off. I appreciate him for being willing. Conrad, man, thank you so much for being here, taking time out of your day to join us.
Thank you for having me, sir. Thank you so much for this.
Man, it's just one of those things where the beauty of this community, guys, and you'll hear me talk about this a lot throughout this series, the beauty of this community is these interactions. It is these connections. It is becoming friends with people that you might not have encountered previously, or you may not have encountered had you taken a different direction in life. But we talk about alignment often, and being aligned with the right people is really going to help you move forward into the vision that you have for yourself and the vision that God has for you. So when we talk about alignment, what was one of the things that you realized, Conrad, that really started to reshape what you thought about being in alignment? You know, what was one of those major milestone moments, or maybe one of those major obstacles where you realized, gosh, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing?
So the moment of alignment for me was in 2016. I was arrested in the state of Florida for a trafficking and marijuana charge. And I, of course, never would have foreseen this coming. Thought that I was living my life in alignment. And when I really was able to sit down and think about everything, go back to the mainframe and rebuild for 5 whole years, I realized at my lowest point, I was aligned. At my lowest point of my life, physically, I was really the most aligned I've ever had been in the 29 years prior to what I'd known to be the end of my life at 29 years old and the beginning of a new life at 29 years old. So
nice. And that's interesting that you say that, because the word talks about being in our weakness is where God's strength prevails. And a lot of times, as guys, you hear me talk about, and you've heard me talk about, those of you who follow me and also follow other people, you'll know that a lot of times we have to get out of our way and get out of our own mind. And can we talk about pouring out in this season? You got to remove yourself from the equation to hear God speak.
Yes, I agree. And so it was in those darkest times for me is when I heard the calling and the voice. And, it's crazy because I was in Avon Park Correctional Facility. It was about 2019. I was probably about 16 months away from being released. And I had studied all these different things, and what it came down to is I met somebody and he said, come here, I want to talk to you about a few things. And at that time, I felt like I just knew everything. He said, you ever really prayed to God? I said, yeah. He said, well, what do you say? So I just he said, you're not praying to God, you're praying to yourself.
Ooh.
And, he said, do God a favor. He said, if you really want to serve God, then when you go to sleep tonight, you're going to pray for God to give you your gift. And I prayed earnestly because it's like, I'm getting ready to come home. I got a daughter at home. I don't know what's out there when I get there, but I know that I need to be prepared. And I've done a lot of writing and reading and drawing and doing all these different things. And then it was like, when I prayed that prayer the next day, I was in alignment from then forward.
And so you talk about alignment, you talk about your gift. Let everybody know where they can find you, where you're at on social media. I know you've got some speaking events coming up. So let's go ahead and put that out real quick.
So my Facebook is Conrad Mark Krause. That's my Facebook. And then my Instagram is Quintessence of Light 613. And what that actually is my government name broken down with the Hebrew alphabet and the numerical values, which equals 613, which is also the same number of Moses. So consciously, that's where I try to pull my archives from.
Terrific. And I know you say you're getting ready to speak where?
So I'm getting ready to do an event about prison reform at Florida State University, January 23rd, which is actually coming up next week on Sunday.
So guys, if you're in the Florida area, is this going to be a public event? Is it virtual or in
Yes.
person?
No, it's going to be an in-person public event.
Guys, so if you're in the area, I'll put some information to that in the description. Go check my man out. He's got a powerful testimony, and you can hear, and you guys will know that what's dear to my heart is not only just the reform of the system itself, but how do we get people prepared to re-enter society and be productive? It's not just about coming home and not getting in trouble, but how can you come back to society and really make a difference? So this is near and dear to my heart, and I'm just excited for the way God is using you and for you to accept your gift, because that's one thing that we talk about often in the call. You can be aware of your gift. I know that I ran for a long time, fully aware, and had it spoken over me several times that I was supposed to, preach or teach or whatnot. But I was like, nah, I don't want none of that, right? And so it's one thing to be aware and another thing to accept. So once you felt like you were in alignment, what was the acceptance process for you? Was it just, okay, you got it? Or, was there a transitional phase where you were kind of up in the air? Or how did that work out?
So because I had been studying for so long, I knew where I wanted to go. I just maybe didn't have the right teacher at the right time. So the process for me was like, after that day, I woke up the next day, and then for about 7 days straight, where it was like, I got to be honest, I haven't really done a lot of hard drugs, but it was better than any other, thing I could think of someone could do. It was so intoxicating for me. And man, my story in prison was like, I was so scared in prison because I wasn't a violent person, that I was in such a violent operation of mindset around me. I literally did the opposite of everybody else. I worked a job where I was able to serve 225 people food, but it wasn't in the kitchen at the place. It was on a separate location. And I just out of nowhere started telling everybody, please and thank you, please and thank you, please and thank you, picking up their trays off the table. That wasn't even my job. Dumping the garbage, that wasn't even my job. I just started really moving in a direction that even myself, I couldn't even understand it. But it was like there was no thought. It was just do. And it just, that movement in that environment, to this day, I literally this morning had a phone call with a gentleman who called me from prison and told me that he appreciated everything that I did and how I walked in prison because I actually exemplified what love was. Man. I'm talking about buying 250 bars of soap for men that just don't have no money. Not because I wanted to do anything besides allow them to know that we're both here together and that my love for my family out there is no different than my love for you in here. And that's those physical acts, the sacrifices that God's calling us to make, is what put me in alignment and what made me, pretty much realize what this whole entire thing is supposed to be about, in my own opinions, which is, unconditional love for one another.
Absolutely. And service, right? I mean, that's the thing that as
service,
you were already serving. And even though you did the opposite of what everybody else did, you see that when you turned away from a particular set of rules and a particular behavior and turned toward God and toward another set of behaviors, how he rewarded you by putting you in a place to not only protect you, but for you to also serve and emulate that love. And that's absolutely a beautiful thing.
Well, the main hitter thing is for me is like, we're just being taught as a society that we're supposed to love the things that represent the opposite of what God is. Mm-hmm. And I had this teacher in prison. I took a cabinet class, and this teacher was amazing. He had a master's, I believe, in philosophy. He was a philosopher, and he shared a lot of things with me that I would be stumbling upon. And he said, listen, there's a lot of things that you're going to have to sacrifice that most people aren't. And if you're really truly worried about serving God and his people, then you start today, right now, after this conversation. And I was already serving. And, it was it was just amazing to find people around me in that environment that genuinely care, not just for me, but for other people. And I mean, that even goes for the officers. Those people are underpaid. And so it's important for me to want to go back, because there's people who have went through like cancer. You got to go back after you win that and pull those people out who are going through that. So my story relates relative to prison. So, you know, that service when I was there, it really forced me to realize that money is the first thing you sacrifice. Because if you can't re-sacrifice that, you ain't willing to sacrifice what it really takes internally to get there.
Yeah, you mean, you know, we see that in scripture, right? When the rich man went to Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the first thing he said, you know, give your stuff away, you know, give away the riches, right? So we know that has to be one of the major sacrifices, because like you've already stated, we're in a society where the emphasis and the importance is placed on the monetary value. So
Everything.
With sacrifice, and I'm glad you already brought that up, is, you know, we talk a lot about picking up your cross and the sacrifice that it requires to do so on a daily basis. What was one of the biggest sacrifices for you personally, if, you know, as transparent as you're willing to be with that? What was one of the biggest sacrifices for you personally as you began to take up your cross and get serious about your walk in your path?
I mean, because the things that are in prison are petty, you know.
Right.
I mean, honestly, in prison, people are fighting over food, and there's an abundance. You know, it's that scarcity mindset, that poverty mindset that is created by the system. That in itself was the easy sacrifice for me. I would get $100 a week of my books, and I would give the money away. And it wasn't like, okay, well, Johnny over here is doing this, so he needs to get some more money. No, it was like, this dude don't have no family. He's got a life sentence. This is for real his life. And I remember, like, on my own birthday, I would spend $60-$70 and cook. I wouldn't even eat. I would do 3-day fast, actually. Not all the time, but those sacrifices to me were very low level compared to where you're out here.
Right.
And I'm still making sacrifices every day. So to me, it's like that the sacrifices in there to them are large. But when you realize that, look, at the end of the day, you're never really sacrificed anything you can't be replaced, because that's what God tells you.
Right.
It tells you that. So in prison, they fight about food for real, like 65 cents.
Yes.
It's principles in there. So, you know, for me, it was easy to I would just leave food on my bed and just be like, y'all have a great day and go to work, you know, because I didn't feel like I was ever not going to have. I've always had an abundance in everything in my life. And I just have had the eyes to see that. And so that you give it away, bro. You give it away. You know why? Because if you want a Lamborghini, you got to give 100 of them away before you actually get the one that God wants for you.
That's it. That's it. So,
you know,
with the difference in the perception of sacrifice in prison and the life that you had before, and even the principles that you carried with you into prison, did you find that sacrifice took on a different definition once you were free?
Oh yeah. 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 I'll say that the level of sacrifice being requested now or desire, like required, I guess I should say, the level that it requires out here is greater. It's harder to fight, because we're taught, you got to get the car, you got to get your kids a PlayStation, you got to get your kids this, you got to buy yourself that. And so when I come out, I'm still living the same principles from in there. Out here, the difference is you have to work, of course, and actually save and spend wisely. But I mean, there's sacrifices that have to be made for me to get to where I'm trying to go. And I'm trying to, the platform, you know, I'm trying to get to is to show everybody that we're all worthy, that we're all capable, that we all have the power and the energy, not because of who we are, but because of who he is.
Correct.
So the one I am. So, you know, the sacrifices out here for me, I'm still in the trained brain system after 5 years of it doesn't matter if I want to go buy this, you know what I'm saying? My neighbor might need something more. And then when I'm ready, the delayed gratification of that is the more that I'll get myself. But it's not going to be until I'm willing to give to my neighbors. It's not going to be until I'm willing to give to my brother down the way. It's not going to be until somebody that I love is in a tough spot. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have to work. No, that just means that things happen, and you know, your car broke, you whatever. Okay, I got you. Those are the things that we're doing for strangers. Because why? Because we're a stranger.
That's it. That's it.
You know,
the body of Christ consists of everybody. And you're not going to
Right.
have a personal relationship with everyone, but you have a personal relationship with God, which should allow you to become personal with other people.
With everyone.
You know,
You know.
that's a major point, because so often, and I'm sure you've seen, and we'll only speak to the faith system that you and I operate under in terms of Christianity, that we have often thought that this relationship, this gift of Christ, this ability to pray and the mercy and the grace that we receive, we've often thought that it was just for us, right? That it was just for the believer. And we know that God came in the form of Jesus to help everyone, right? Those who were marginalized, those who were less fortunate, those who were cast out by society. Do you find that you get flack? And again, I'm learning about you currently, just as everybody who's going to listen to this is learning about you. Do you find that you get flack or pushback by the principles that you operate in from more mainstream or organized religious entities? Do you get pushback from that when you kind of talk about the things that you talk about?
So what I get oftentimes, which I need to work on, is confusion.
Mm-hmm.
And what it really comes down to, why the people are confused about their faith and what Christianity even really is or represents, or what the whole story of Jesus really represents in our everyday life for each and single, like each one of us, is it's this the separation of words. Basically what it comes down to is sometimes using words that people don't understand, they reject. But in
Mm-hmm.
my own experience, it's really out of ignorance, not because they feel like, oh, well, he knows everything. Well, I just have experienced so much at a different level that I realize what Jesus is and what that represents. So I get pushback because I'm not really at this moment. Have I ever really broke it down in terms that others can really relate to? So,
Right.
but when I slow myself down in a conversation enough and start to show them, look, this character in the Bible is you. Hey, look, this thing that Jesus did, he did that in the flesh. So you should be doing the same thing, or at least aspiring to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's opening your heart up and receiving the truth of what Jesus represents. Jesus represents unconditional love. How do you know that? They punched him in the face. What did he say? He didn't say punch back, bicker, nothing. He said turn the other cheek and give him that one too. And why is that? Because when you're walking in faith with the one I am, you're learning through Jesus's actions that he actually took. That's the power. We don't
Right.
need to be reading these stories about Jesus. We need to be learning these teachings about Jesus.
That's it. That's it. And you bring up a great point, because you and I spoke about this offline. You know, in order for people to understand and to grasp the magnitude of what Christ is and this belief system is, you have to be able to speak their language, right? We talked about that. You know, Jesus, when he taught
Correct.
parables, when he was with the farmers, he used, vernacular that farmers understood. He told stories that related to farming, right? When he was with fishers, he did the same thing, or fishermen rather, he did the same thing. So we have to learn that regardless of your level of experience, and regardless of your level of intellect, and regardless of your theological expertise, you have to be able to relate, and people have to understand what you're saying if you want
Mm-hmm.
to build that relationship with God. And so that's a great point, because we see that a lot, and we see that with a lot of leaders and authority figures. They have this grand presence, but they're so hard to understand that you leave more confused than when you came in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I was just thinking about this when you were talking about that. I'll say this: I haven't been shunned, but when I was in prison, I got baptized. Right after my prayer that I prayed, I spoke about earlier, I got baptized. And the pastor was a really good pastor. He actually was the first pastor in the Christian church that I myself have met that actually had some depth of knowledge within the book. And I told him, hey, pretty much, hey Doc, do you mind if I share my testimony? And you're a part of it. And I told him, I want to speak to the men in this prison about what I just experienced and how it worked for me and how it's going to change them if they choose to. And so he was like, well, what would you say? And I just told him basically, I would break down all of this stuff in a way that they could understand. And then when they can start to actually understand what's being said in the Bible, then there's really power in their life. And so this is another thing for me that is very, very, I guess you could say I rebel against the actual building of the church and the people inside, not the congregation, but the teachers. Most of these people, get to the point where they just graduate their little degree and then go be a preacher or a pastor. But it's like a doctor. You have to continuously do evolving knowledge. You have to keep studying. You have to continue to pass tests. You have to continue, because as you expand as a pastor from the energy of the congregation who sees and hears your word and you on the stage, you have to continue to go deeper in yourself so you can keep feeding them on a different level. But then the explanations in the common layman terms has to come. Absolutely. And so for me, that's really kind of where my frustrations are, is like, you know, you're not studying. You done made it to that I guess you say that title. You done got the title of whatever, and you're just good now. And it's like, but your church ain't going to grow that way because you're not going to grow.
Right. Well,
so you know,
growth in leadership first. Yes,
I mean, so I absolutely love the Christian faith. I absolutely love Christian people. I mean, I think they're some of the most well-rounded, beautiful people that exist. I just wish and I hope that in the next coming years that with this consciousness change we're going through, it shifts to a point where they're actually teaching the whole truth and nothing but the truth, and they won't go anywhere but from the truth. Right. Because that's what the teachings are built on, is nothing but the truth. And to know the truth, you have to experience some pressures. Yes. In order to be exposed to what God really is and what it really means to walk in the life of Christ, and to wear the robes of Christ through the walk of God for your life. And then it's so beautiful when it's understood.
Absolutely. And you said something there that's always poignant. You know, you have to, we talk about emulation, and what that means is you have to be the example. You know, we can say all the most beautiful terminology. We can have all of the vocabulary. We can, you know, invoke all of the emotion through our speech as anyone. However, if your walk is counter to what you're saying, then you're always going to be a disconnect, and there's going to be a reason why there's no growth, because what people see you doing doesn't align. There's that word alignment again with what you're saying. And one thing I wanted to ask you about is you mentioned the continuation of tests, and we know that you have to continue to be tested in order for your faith to grow. And at each level, the test is going to change slightly because you're going to have stronger faith and more tools and more skills at your disposal. Post prison, we're talking about just what's happening now with you. What has been so far your biggest test personally? As you've come out now, okay, you know, there's freedom, there's a lot of things changing, I know, a lot of transitions, but you're also trying to walk with Christ. So what's been your biggest test so far?
So my biggest test has been the first year out. I'll just say that. My biggest test has been the first year out. In the state of Florida, you have this thing that's called PRR, which is Prison Reoffender Act. And if you get in trouble within the first 3 years of you going away, you get an automatic 15 years. Wow. So a part of me going to do, well, the 15 years is before they actually charge you for whatever crime that you did within the first 3 years.
So you get an automatic 15 on top of whatever.
Yes, it's PRR, yep. So basically, the main reason I want to go back to this prison system is because we cannot heal from the outside in. We can't heal from these officers. We have to heal internally as individuals. And what they do to you in prison is they strip you of everything. Literally, they strip you of everything. And then they implant this environment. Yes, you go into this environment where you're taught. Literally, the first prison I went to, the slogan is "Welcome to We Will Hit You." Chapter 33, which are the laws that they are governed by in the prison system, does not apply. And I'll never forget that because it didn't apply. And so we have to go in and heal this internal thing, because when they strip you down to nothing, guess what you believe when you come home? They're releasing you. You believe that you're just trash. You believe that you're less than a man because that's what you've been told for 5 years. You believe that you're less than the officer who chose to go work in that prison instead of be the person on the other side. And so my first year has been a challenge because I've had many altercations where I won't even say altercations because I never even did anything about it. I've had many challenges where, for example, I mow grass. I blew some grass into some dude, had his door open. He came over like he was going to be violent with me. I put my hands up, surrender, and said, "Sir, please don't do this to me. Please, I'm asking you nicely. I'll pay to get your car detailed." At the end of the day, you know what I wanted to do was just go back to prison. Right. But I have to sacrifice. So my first year out was my hardest year. Also, by the way, while I was still locked up, at work release, where I had a regular job. It was a transitional period for 4 months. I got a girl that I was with when I was 17 pregnant. So I came home and my girl was 4 months pregnant. And we have the baby, we're together, and everything is going amazing. But there's been so many trials and tribulations because, you know, in this life, these sacrifices that we're going to have to make for other people, there's pressure behind it, because at that point you're working for God.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So physically you're going to be going through some cycles in your mind, like trial and error, like I'm not worth nothing because that's what I've been told. How do I even know working a job is the right thing to do? I don't know what to do. And guess what? I'm broken from this.
Right.
And so this whole last year has been a trial. I've overcome a lot of things, but the fight is only going to get more intense as I continue to try to reach a level for God where I could influence one person, just one person, please, influence one person to love themselves the way that they should be loved by other people as well.
Absolutely, man. And
just
that's
one person.
That's a beautiful thing, because it's, you know, we were talking about that on the call yesterday, you know, with relation to numbers and social media and followings and all of that. And that's something that we talked about was, you know, the only number that matters is one. Can you reach one? Can you save one? Can you change one? Can you help one? Can you help one? Right. And so that's something that I think about often, and something I do want to speak to, because I think it's very important for people to understand. You know, we talk about sacrifices, and of course there's going to be monetary sacrifices, there's going to be financial sacrifices, there's going to be generosity involved. But I think people don't think enough about the psychological sacrifices and the psychological test, right? You know, the battle first takes place in the mind, ladies and gentlemen. You all have heard me speak about this before, that before anything else happens, it is what you think, what you perceive, what you think about yourself. All of these things make up how you will project yourself into the actual world. So it's great that Conrad mentioned that about, you know, the things that he was thinking and dealing with, because that is the biggest test. How do you change the way that you think about you, about life, about everything that you know, especially when you go from a perception to a deception, and now you have to reorient yourself.
Mm-hmm. So I love that you brought that up about the cycle. So listen, in the beginning of what is it, John? In the beginning of John, it says, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." Okay, so right. So what these are the teachings that we need people to understand. The Word is vibration, and God is light. And without vibration, you don't see light. And without light, you don't see vibration. I mean, and so, you know, that it's heavy hitting stuff, man. Those are the psychological thing is like really simple. For 5 years, I had a man literally telling me how I'm not worthy. Guess what? I'm still going to serve these men that are in blue. You know why? Because they're worthy if I'm not. So I had all these people telling me. I literally woke up one time at 3 o'clock in the morning to go to work. I had a really good job. And I remember somebody saying sometime was like, the guy was like, I have the right to do this, sir, per chapter 33. And the officer told him, basically, you have no rights. You're a slave to the state.
Yep.
You have no rights, you know? And then another thing was like, that same guy would come smile in my face while I make a sweet tea, because he knows I'm the one that has to make it. And then would be like telling me how basically not even towards me, but I'm still in blue. You're telling me about, oh, I don't never want to hear another man tell me he's sorry. And to me, it's like, so you're perfect then. You're Jesus then. You know, you're walking right now. And those things are the reversals coming out. And guess what? I got to be honest with you. God has blessed me far more than he's ever going to bless that guy, because I walked through the shadow and it came out, and I don't have to treat people that way for me to get the glory.
That's it, man.
You know,
and that's great. Sorry to cut you off. It made me think about what my pastor talked about specifically this morning on his service was, you know, man cannot disqualify you from what God has called you to do. And one thing that he was saying was, you know, if you can disqualify me, that means you can do it better. That means that's your assignment. That means that's what God's called you to do, right? And so that brings your point out perfectly, is that, you know, when God's called you to do something, he's going to bless it. He's going to provision it. He's going to provide for you. He's going to give you what you need. And no man, no person, we say man affectionately, guys, as men and women, no other human being can ever take that away from you or tell you that you're not good enough. So if you guys take nothing else away from this conversation today, know that you are good enough. Know that you are worthy. Know that you are loved. Know that God cares for you. Know that he's going to battle for you, and know that whatever it is God has called you to do is for you, and no one can tell you any different. Guys, that's
Yes,
all I want
sir.
to say about that, man. Don't get me too high, because we'll move into something completely different. But segueing into the psychological change, we're going to bring that back up and bring our conversation full circle, and back into not having people disqualify you. What has the community that we're part of, this Win the Morning community, done to reverse and change that perspective for you? Like what has it done? What's been some of the biggest helps being in that community? Because we're about qualifying people, and not saying that our word authenticates it, but it's about empowerment, and it's about giving back, and it's about showing you that you do matter. So what has that community done for you?
So let me reach back for 1 second. When I was in prison, I had a lot of fears of coming out, and not because I didn't think I was going to produce, but it was like, okay, I've had this massive transformation, and it's crazy. I had this massive transformation, and so when I come out, I'm like, I don't know, is there anybody even doing this stuff? So when I got out, I didn't really search for anything, because I was trying to get my bearings with my company and my life and my girlfriend and my kid and my other child I had prior to going away, and all these things getting fixed and worked out. So I was finding myself in negative downward spirals. And not like, okay, I want to commit crime or anything terrible like that. It was just like, what am I doing and where am I going? I honestly kind of lost. And so I had went on my Facebook when I came home and deleted everybody off. And I added I added a ton of people, and all strangers. So I ran across a few of my friends who were mutual friends with Chesco. And I had known Chesco from when I was a kid, and him doing music. So I was like, wow, this guy's really changed a lot. I mean, the last time I seen him, he was doing different things, and this right here is amazing. I emailed him and seen what he was doing with his time and his family. And actually, I think it was right after the Clubhouse had started. He was like, man, you guys check us out. So I was like, all right, cool. I've never been in anything. I've never been paid for anything. I've never been a part of anything. So I said, you know what, maybe this can be something different and bring me some structure. So I went ahead, I got on the 8 o'clock call. It is from 8 to 8:30, Win Your Mornings. And I just, from the name of the theme to the vibration and the level of consciousness of what people are talking in there, really, really, really picked me up, because I was like, all right, I actually have some like-minded people. So I listened in for probably, I would say, 3 weeks. And then I decided, you know what? Everybody on here is bringing so much in. I want to share my story. So that way I can maybe encourage them, because every single day it's like I almost feel like the pieces to the puzzle are falling in, just because of the positivity that they were bringing. So I emailed him, hey, how do I get on and speak? And then after I started speaking, it became a therapy for me. And after I started speaking, it gave me a way to express myself, and then possibly, like they were doing for me, add value into me. So that call I have not missed, except maybe one or two. I stop work. I do whatever I got to do to make it happen, because that is something that the consistency, the information gained, is pushing and catapulting me forward, so much so that it's influencing also my partner. And she's enjoying it as well. So that right there catapulted into, hey guys, we should try to start reading together and studying together. And I'm all about reading. Another thing that I had anxiety about when I came out, grown people aren't sitting down reading, and definitely not together. So when he posed that, I said, oh man, I got to get a part of this. So the value in all that is like, now he's asking everybody, hey, you should get a word for the year and just stick to it. Don't get 5 or 10, just stick to it. Just stick to one word, pick a word and get the definition of that word and really understand that definition. And then if that's really what you feel like is going to help you, grow this year, then stick to it all the way through. So my chose execute. And to me, it's easy for everybody to start a bunch of jobs. It's really hard for them to finish. And it's not that was my problem, but execute also to me means put more on your plate and get them all done. So more things get done and accomplished. So that room has certainly changed not only my heart and my direction, it's changed my mind back to where I was in prison, but I'm actually able to live it out here. And then I have support from you. I have support from Chesco. I have support from Leonardo. I have support from, Kyle. I have support of all you guys, and it's not a matter of I need to reach out, but every day you start your day and you look outside, you need to wonder what it is that you did, that you deserved to see what God created for us. And then you need to thank him that you're not a part of the 150,000. And then when I get on that call, that positivity just keeps going and going. And it doesn't really wear out until I'm already off work and it's 8 o'clock at night.
Right. And
you know, it just keeps me going.
That's it, man. And thank you for saying that, because that's obviously is how I feel. And I'm looking forward to bringing everybody who's on that call on here and being part of this show, because this is just a beautiful thing to watch. There's something Alejandro said to me the other day. He and I had a conversation, was that it was beautiful for him to not only witness so many people growing and blossoming simultaneously, but to participate, not only for himself, but being someone who can pour into someone else's life so they may continue to grow too. And that's one thing I love about the call, the community, the relationships that I have made and are cultivating have been beautiful, and they've been positive. And it's certainly changed and influenced my life for the better as well. I know I pour in a lot to a lot of people, but I always want to tell you guys how much what you say inspires me to keep going and to continue to grow. Like you say, it's evolutionary, and we're always going to be changing. It's always perpetual. We're always going to be learning and growing and having these relationships and building these relationships. So I definitely want to thank you for all the things that you have poured into that group. When I've been able to be on the call, because everything you say is always spot on. It's always positive, and it's always something I can take away and apply to my life as well. So, man, with that, we are out of time. It has been an absolute privilege to sit here and learn more about you and learn more about your history. I know a lot of people are interested in what was going on with you during prison, but that was your transitional phase. And so for me, the more important story is now. What's happening now? And I know you're going to do a lot with prison reform. I know you're going to do some great things. But for me, bringing you on was more about, let's talk about the new Conrad. Let's we know that the prison portion shaped some things for you, and that was definitely a point that God put you in to get you to follow him. But that's not the most important part of your story. The most important part of the story is starting right now. So I appreciate you, man, taking the time out to be here. Is there anything else you want to add before we close out?
No, I just want everybody to know that they are worth more than they'll ever believe that they're worth. How do we know that? Is because the one created them. And honestly, that's what it comes down to. You're that special. And if you could just accept that and then live your life within the gift, which means you live naturally and you produce naturally what is comfortable for you to do every day, so it's not work. And honestly, that takes some time, and you really have to have faith. So that's really it for me.
Man,
just want everybody to know that they gotta love themselves, because no one else is gonna love you the way you're supposed to love yourself.
Boom, except for the God that created you, as he already said. So guys, that's all the time we have. We thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. There is a place where you can donate to the podcast to get us more equipment. You guys know that we've expanded television, so we're going to continue to move and push the limit and push the boundary as God sees fit. So anything that you guys can do to help us certainly does not go unnoticed, and we are appreciative of any donations that you do give. Don't forget that my new book, 40 Days and Nights, Journey Through the Wilderness, is available on Amazon. Get yourself a copy of that. If you want me to sign it, let me know. We'll work out the logistics. Guys, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you again for watching. We love you all. And like Conrad said, no one can love you as much as you can love yourself, except for the one that created you. So with that, let's change the way that we think so we can change the way that we live. Until next time, stay blessed.